Hi there. It is now just about time for our Accounting 212 midterm exam. In fact, the window actually opened today, but I'm assuming that few, if any of you, have sat for the test yet. So I thought we had time to do the video. So here's just a reminder of how the class operates. You saw this in your syllabus. The Connect homework is worth 2,400 points. The midterm exam is worth 2,750. Let me stop here and go back to Connect for a minute. So with Connect, you have Learn Smarts, which are worth 1,200, and Pre-Built Problems, which are worth 1,200. When you add them, you get to the 2,400. The final exam is worth 2,750 points. The Management Accounting Project, 1,500. The ongoing collection of blogs, 50 points in total. 50 points each and 400 points in total. And the introductory activities, 200 points. And remember, those were the things you already did when you introduced yourself. They were doing an introduction and stating whether or not you understood the syllabus. Before I dive into all those details about what's on the test, let's remember the nature of it. So the nature is that the test is worth 2760 as it turns out. So there's actually 10 extra points on it. But the 20 multiple choice questions are worth 70 points each. And the 4 problems are worth 340 points each. And with a multiple choice, they're right or wrong. But with the 4 problems, there'll be significant partial credit. Now, one thing that I want to point out about the problems is that 3 of the 4 of them are in essay format. And that means that whether I'm asking you to do journal entries, whether I'm asking you to add numbers together, you have to show me all your work, and you really have what is sort of like a word processing space. The 4th problem is a fill-in-the-blank problem, much like the first case study requirement. If you remember that requirement where you had to give some thought to how many years certain things would last. And I just want to remind you, when you're thinking about how many years things would last, while common sense is a good place to start, if the problem tells you something specific like the insurance only covers 1 year, then even if you'd like to spread it over several, you can't. Calculators are allowed on the test. Also, the test is open book, open resources, which means you can use computers. Let's dive right in. So, Chapter 13. There are 4 questions on multiple choice from Chapter 13. One of them is a current ratio calculation, and I've got the page reference here. One of them is the profit margin calculation. One of them is the time interest earned ratio calculation. One is an acid test ratio calculation. And then you have a problem where you have 2 companies, and you have to look at the 2 companies and select the best using several ratios. Select which company's better. Common thing you do with ratios in real life. So in Chapter 14, there are 3 questions and multiple choice. One of them has you look at a cost and try to determine if it's a product cost or a period cost. That wouldn't be terribly different to what you spent some time doing in your first week of the course project. Then you could classify costs by behavior. Are they fixed or are they variable? And then one question where you pull out the right definition of factory overhead. Now, there are 2 problems that I feel deal significantly with Chapter 14. One But I mean, both of them have similarities to things in the case study. One is use variable cost, fixed cost, and desired profit to calculate a price for a product. This one's not going to be a spaceship, it'll be something else, but you can use your skills there that you've learned. And then the second problem is to determine how long expenditures will be included in overhead. And again, this is like the one I told you as a fill in the blank, and that's what you're going to do here. But you're going to have a lot of blanks, and so collectively they'll be worth 340 points. Chapter 15, there are 3 multiple choice questions, one of them dealing with predetermined overhead rate, and you'll have to calculate it. One of them you'll have to actually talk about how to use the rate. And one, there's a question on which of several businesses should use job cost accounting. And I think between the LearnSmart and your reading, the blogs, you should feel very comfortable with that question. And then there's also a question where you determine the cost of a job. The problem from chapter 15 is an essay type form. So remember, you're going to have to sort of word process this, but you're going to complete a job cost sheet. I'm calling it free form, and I call it that on the test, really just to point out that I didn't give you the form. You can make it up. You should use the form that's in the book as an example, but you'll have to pull the data from the problem and put it in different places. Also keep in mind when you are doing a job cost type form that you do have to calculate overhead. It's a big part of the assignment of job costs. With regard to chapter 16, there are 3 multiple choice questions in total. 2 of them have you calculate the equivalent units of production, and one of them has you pick out the equivalent units of production formula. Let me tell you that these equivalent unit calculations are very simple. So I know from hearing from a number of you that the pre-built problem that dealt with this in chapter 16 was complicated. It was complicated anyway, and when the key that Connect or McGraw-Hill applied had some errors in it, it didn't make solving this any easier. So there are also 2 types of questions dealing with what type of business should or should not use process accounting. So if I've confused you at all here, realize there's a total of 5 questions. In chapter 17, one of the questions has you calculate a departmental overhead rate, and one of them has you provide a definition of an activity cost pool, or pick the right one. These are both multiple choice questions. So notice chapter 17 is very lightly hit all throughout the test and all throughout the class. Little on the case study, really none. Little on the test. So bear that in mind. Chapter 18, we have 1, calculate the contribution margin ratio. We have a cost volume profit analysis definition, and 1 case where you have to calculate a cost equation using the high-low method. All multiple choice in chapter 18. So the final thing I want to mention is that the practice test, while it's not the same as the final exam, is very similar, and it should give you a real good feel for what's on the test. If you take the practice test, which you can do over and over again, and you submit it for a grade, you should be able to see your multiple choice answers at the time you submit, but the essays will come to me and I'll look at them and assign a grade. Of course, a number of you just mess with the multiple choice anyway, and if you leave blanks in the problems, then they'll sit there with a bunch of zeros on them. Anyway, hope you do well on the test. Please let me know if you have any questions. Take care.